Many thanks for staying with us and moving on to the next topic. That is the NLC and federal government saga and the solution to this impasse. Now, the NLC are threatening strike by 14th of August if the federal government does not withdraw the lawsuits is issued against it. But now, before we even go on to that, let us look at the implication of this incessant strike. It is also worthy to note that the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors are also on strike, and the federal government has threatened the no work, no pay plan to perhaps try to get them back to work. But let us look at the implication of this incessant strike on Nigeria's economy. Because if we are going on strike, that means we are joking with our production.
Correct.
And if the production is reduced, then of course, the output is going to suffer.
Correct.
So what do we do now?
Well, we have to find a way to resolve most of this problem without resolving to strike or protest, as the case may be. That is very important. If you ask me, some of the strikes we've embarked on in this country were absolutely unnecessary. For example, why go on a strike when you are in discussion? I don't understand that. Then, after the strike for a few hours, you went back and said strike has been suspended. All you have done is you just cost the economy several productive hours for that day while you stayed off. Their own argument has been that, oh, that is the only language that government understands, government doesn't respond to anything. But you are in the room, you are in discussion with that same government. Why not? Sometimes I'm beginning to think, is it that Labour believes that he must show power by going on strike? He must show the people that it is working. But I don't think what the people really need is a strike. Rather, it is the resolution of the issues that are leading to the strike. That is what people want. So if that resolution is already on the table being discussed, can we see it through? The bulk of this problem has to do with issues of trust capital between the government and the governed. So people don't trust the government that much. It's left for a new government, for example, that is now in the saddle to want to build trust with the people, with labor, citizens all over again. So if at the end of the day, whatever it agrees with labor, for example, it should and must implement. That is how you build trust. So that next time, if labor is complaining and saying, I won't do that, I won't do this, you say, the last time you came, we sat down, we agreed, and what we agreed, we did it. That is trust. That is how to build trust capital. But where that is not there, you're going to have this issue of strike, which has become more or less like just some threats, avoidable, costing us economic damage in the middle of the serious economic problem that we already have.
Okay, because if we are to look at it from the NLC's perspective, they said that before they even embark on protest or strike, they always try to dialogue with the federal government, but then they are not taken seriously. Maybe they would call for meeting, they stay there for hours, and no government representative would come to the meeting. And then
that would be unusual.
Anger would ensue, and then from then they would go on strike. In instances like that, could we say that then perhaps it is justifiable that they are trying to get the attention of the federal government through going on strike?
If that is the case, it makes sense. But in the particular case of the last strike that we had, I don't think that was the case. I don't think there were issues of, oh, we came to a meeting, you didn't show up. It was more or less as if we just need to show that we are here and labor is still here and Aluta and the strike are still. That is what it appears to be. And by the way, the issues of intervention and palliatives are not meant to just be federal government problems. I'm delighted that some state governments are already weighing in. Even corporate employers are doing, some employers are already weighing in. Some are increasing salaries, some are providing staff buses, some are saying work from home for 2. In fact, I was in church earlier today, and one of the person I was talking with said she now works 4 days from home. It doesn't reduce what it does. In fact, he told me that yesterday night she slept at about midnight. So she was still busy, but she doesn't have to get on the road and burn time and fuel and money. And that is a whole lot as far as she is concerned. So there are multiple levels of intervention and palliative, from personal life adjustment I have a car that is a fuel guzzler, for example, and it's piling up dust where it is parked. I take the other smaller car that it takes less fuel. You know, so if it is not important that I take that big, I won't. That's personal life, lifestyle adjustment. So it's multiple. Even local government have to do some things. Everybody. But then, government must do its part. While every other layer, federal government, while every other layers of government and leadership are doing theirs, government must do, at the center, must do its own.
Okay, let us look at some of the things that the NLC are demanded for, and that is about 200 to 300% rise in minimum wage. With our current economic realities, how feasible is that?
I don't think it is feasible. Even if it is feasible, I don't think it is economically wise. Labour is demanding for increase in minimum wage from 30,000 to 200,000. That is probably like 500% increase or something. Now, the problem with that is that you are pumping a lot of cash into the economy. That supply of cash will lead to further aggravation of the inflation problem that we have. Everybody, every mouth will be open for that your big salary that is coming, and they all want a share of it. So that will pop up prices in the market. So that's why I said going from 30,000 to 200,000 is not wise, you know. But Labour might just be using it as a bargaining chip. They probably don't believe that they were going to get 200,000. But maybe if they shoot for the skies, they might end up on the roof or in the cloud, as the case may be. What is better to do is increase minimum wage, no doubt, but not 200,000. But then ask yourself, this wage that I pay the people, how do they spend it? Where does it go to? One of it is food. So rather than give them that much, make the food available so that food is easier for them to buy. They consume education. They consume healthcare. Intervene in all those areas where the money goes, including transportation. Intervene. When you intervene in all those places, they will get much more value, but it will not be in cash, which has the danger of inflating the economy further.
Okay, and in the president's nationwide broadcast, he mentioned that between July 2023 to March 2024, they would acquire 3,000 units of 20-seater compressed natural gas CNG fueled buses.
Yes.
How do you view that, that proposed development?
I think it's fantastic. We are a gas country. Nigeria is a gas country, not even an oil country. The volume of gas is unbelievable. So if we have that much gas, why don't we make it count for us? And if CNG, this is the alternative energy discussion, and it is a very important part of government intervention. So we're saying, can we migrate some of our energy consumption from the PMS platform to CNG, which is much cheaper and efficient? So getting these buses, deploying CNG infrastructure is a shift away from dependent on PMS to diversifying our energy base, which will go a long way as an intervention for us in Nigeria.
Okay, and I feel like it is also worthy to mention the development or this latest invention, so to speak, that people are doing with their generators. They change the part of it and then it consumes gas.
Yes, they change the carburetor and then they can now use LPG to power it or CNG to power it. Actually, manufacturers in Nigeria have been using CNG for years to power generators. But it wasn't common to the rest of us as consumers of energy because we have alternative, especially PMS, that most people use for their small generator. But with what has happened, innovation, what do they call it? Something is the mother of invention.
Yes.
You know, that is what is going on. People are converting their generators. Ogun State government, as its own intervention, is saying, I will convert 2,000 vehicles at a cost to the government. I will convert them to CNG, and I will make CNG infrastructure available at the bus stops. It is a promise. But here is it. If it is able to carry out that kind of an idea, it will help a great deal. as far as migrating to an alternative source of energy. That is it.
Well, looking at it, it all sounds very brilliant on paper, but one of the things that we have to trouble with is the implementation of that. And I'm talking about gas. There's also this rule of when there is higher demand, the supply increase, and the issue that we usually have in Nigeria is when the demand for something is higher, then automatically the price goes up. And it is a worry among some sectors of people in the country that if attention is being paid to gas now, we might also experience an exponential increase. Is that worry valid?
It is, because that is how the market works. If the demand increases and there is no corresponding increase in supply, or what economists will call other things being equal, then the price will go up. However, we can decide to intervene by not making other things to be equal. So as the demand is increasing, let's also increase the supply. If we increase the supply, it will ensure that that price will not rise in response to the demand, because as it is going up, the supply is also going up. So being able to make more gas available should be part of the plan for something like what the Ogun State governor was suggesting. So we have to also be ready. Since we know that when more people start to consume that CNG, the price will go up if there is no increase in supply. So let's be ready to flood the market with the gas. And that way, we'll keep the price as we want it.
Okay, and one of the things that came to my mind is Labour is demanding for palliative, they are demanding for increasing minimum wage. But how come Labour itself is not talking about increasing production, or maybe perhaps encouraging the federal government to go for industrialization and processing? Because we do produce as a nation, but one of our problems is processing it, which is why we are always importing. So how would you, well, maybe this advice might even be to the NLC, that rather than always demanding from the federal government, what is it that they too can do to make sure that everything gets even?
As a matter of fact, all those refineries that are not producing anything and people are receiving salary, who is receiving the salary? Is it not Labour? Is it not members of the NLC? They are, in reality. But here is it. It is not for them to demand productivity. It is for the employers to demand it. I would demand productivity from my end. If you don't demand it, you won't work. A lot of people will not work if there is no demand. So we need to migrate our workspace to a performance-driven environment. You can't have refineries running for decades, not producing nothing, and people are earning salary. If that was somebody's father's business, will he do it that way? And it is the same NLC members that are there as well. So NLC, like you implied, is culpable in its own way. And its duty should not be just about bring. You should also have been able to intervene in issues of wastage. Because NLC also speak about wastage. Was NLC missing the fact that people working in refineries without production is also a wastage? It's also part of government wastage. You keep them there. Trillions have been spent over the decades. You're not paying these people. But for me, to be blamed for that is not the labor. It's from the employer who should and must demand productivity from the people who speak.
Right, and then we keep talking about diversification, maybe moving from producers to consumers to being the one that also packages and sends out
industrialization.
Yes, industrialization.
Yeah.
So looking at how things are and the plans already being put in place, if you were to envisage, how soon do you think Nigeria is to becoming one of, well, I don't want to be greedy, let's say like in the top 20 exporters in the world?
Top 20 will definitely be in a long run. But we can jumpstart that in the medium term. There are a few things that are not connecting. There's number one, the issue of power. Very, very critical and central to production. Number two are other infrastructure, including transportation connectivity. When people produce somewhere, they must be able to get that product either to a center where it is processed or a center where it is exported, whatever the case may be. So the transportation infrastructure and some other infrastructure, including port infrastructure, we must deal with it. Then we must begin to change our mentality to consume that which is ours. I'll give you an example. 43 items were banned in 2015 from accessing CBN window for, and now, recently I heard that a Chamber of Commerce was advocating that let us lift the ban on this item. There's nothing wrong about that, especially since the exchange rates have now been collapsed into one. But when you look at that list, you see an item there called toothpick. And you ask yourself, why do you want to lift ban on importation of toothpick? You want us to still be bringing toothpick? So the consumption mentality itself also needs to change. You know, and then we industrialize. If the power is there, transport infrastructure is there, we can industrialize the station. We can turn ourselves away from being a producer of commodities, primary commodities. You produce coal, you export it. You produce crude, you can't even refine, you export it. Then you go out there and buy the refined product. What we're doing is we're shipping our jobs to other countries, and we are suffering right here.
Now, that is definitely food for thought. And I sincerely hope that the federal government would also gear into taking action. The plans are in place. Nigerians just need action. That is the only thing we're asking for at this time. And really, it has really been informative. It has been educative back here on the program. Many thanks for being with us on Firecrackers today.
Thanks for having me.
And that's Bola Olojede, an economy expert. Also, the person who joined us live from Ibadan, that is Niya Borishade, a legal practitioner and human rights lawyer activist. We send our sincere thanks to him too for joining us on the program. Well, it is indeed my pleasure to be on the show with you this Sunday. My name is Ireba Misalako, but please do join us same time, same station next week. Do have a wonderful week ahead.